Hey, welcome back to the Cybersecurity Whisperer. I'm Elliott Franklin. This week, buckle up because the news out of GitHub alone is enough to make any security professional's head spin. And we've got a White House executive order, a self-replicating worm targeting AI coding tools, and more. So let's get into it. Well, we're going to start with the biggest story of the week, and honestly, one of the most fascinating supply chain attacks I've seen in a long time. Now, on June 5th, GitHub disabled 73 repositories across Microsoft's Azure, Azure Samples, Microsoft Docs, after a malicious commit was pushed to the Azure Durable Task Repository through a compromised contributor account. Now, the campaign is called Miasma, and here's what makes it different from your garden variety supply chain attack. The attacker planted a payload runner wired to execute automatically through 5 developer tools: Claude Code, Gemini CLI, Cursor, VS Code, and the npm test script. A developer only needs to clone an affected repo and open it in an AI coding agent for the malware to run. Now, let's think about that. You don't install a poison package. You don't click a link. You just open a folder. The attack planted configuration files that execute a credential harvesting payload when a developer opens the repository in one of these tools. And once triggered, the bun-based worm harvests credentials for AWS, Azure, GCP, Kubernetes, NPM, and GitHub, then uses those stolen tokens to commit itself into any repository the victim can write to. Now, spreading autonomously across the ecosystem. That's a self-replicating worm propagating through your developer identity fabric, and it's not theoretical anymore. Now, GitHub disabled 73 of their own Microsoft repos in a 105-second automated sweep, including Azure Functions Action, breaking CI/CD pipelines for developers worldwide. 105 seconds. That's actually really impressive detection and response, but the downstream blast radius is actually still being determined. Now, the biggest lesson here, Miasma found the seam between source control, AI-assisted development, and the old assumption that opening a trusted repository is a safe act. That assumption is now dead. So if your developers are using AI coding agents, and they are, your threat model needs to include the act of opening a repo as an execution vector, which is certainly new territory for most, if not all of us. Well, shifting to Washington, on June 2nd, President Trump signed an executive order titled Promoting Advanced Artificial Intelligence, Innovation, and Security, which directed federal agencies to establish a framework for the secure development of frontier AI models, including a process by which developers would voluntarily provide the government with early access to models for up to 30 days before releasing them to trusted partners. The order also directs agencies to develop benchmarks to assess AI models' cyber capabilities and create an AI cybersecurity clearinghouse to review and share information on these vulnerabilities. Now, the word voluntary is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Critics note that benchmark classification authority rests predominantly with the intelligence community behind the classified curtain, with really no procedural floor for response times and no public methodology to scrutinize. But here's the thread I want to pull. The reason this order exists is that frontier AI models are now capable of autonomously identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities in real-world software. The government wants a 30-day look back before these models hit the market. Whether the framework is strong enough, of course, it's always debatable. But the recognition that AI is now an offensive cyber capability, that conversation has officially reached the White House. Well, a few more items worth putting on your radar. A 2-year-old Oracle WebLogic patch that enterprises, of course, still haven't applied. A Russian state-sponsored FSB group using WinRAR and USB drives, that's still a thing. They're really using this as effective attack vectors. And an Android framework 0-day under active exploitation before most corporate device policies will notice. Those were all in this week's threat landscape. Now, the FSB WinRAR story is particularly humbling. The most sophisticated nation-state actors in the world are beating organizations with file archive software. Come on, guys, patch your stuff. CISA also added a critical SQL injection vulnerability in Drupal core to its KV, the Known Exploited Vulnerability Catalog, with cybersecurity firm Imperva reporting over 15,000 exploitation attempts targeting nearly 6,000 Drupal sites across 65 countries. Now, if you've got Drupal anywhere in your web stack, your team needs to know about this. Drupal is a real common content management system platform. Here's the thread connecting all of this. The attack surface in 2026 is your developer workflow, your AI tools, and your identity infrastructure. Miasma didn't hit your firewall. It hit the moment a developer opened a repository in VS Code. The Trump executive order isn't responding to hypothetical risk. It's responding to AI models that can actually exploit software. People first, then process, then technology. And right now, your developers are people who trust their tools. Make sure that trust is warranted. Well, that's the week. I'm Elliott Franklin. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay safe. We'll see you next time on the Cybersecurity Whisperer.